Thursday. A lot to get through with the Republic of Ireland games against Georgia and Switzerland, and a lot of interesting stories in the Premier League. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
We'll get on to Ireland and the possibility that, well, who knows, this time next week Republic of Ireland may have qualified for Euro 2020 if everything went right.
Fingers crossed.
But there's a lot to talk about in the Premier League, from Manchester City losing yet again, Tottenham and their capitulation against Brighton, and also Manchester United, where we might start, because I was at St James's Park last Sunday, where it was a 1-0 win for Newcastle, just their second win of the season, but it wasn't really a smash and grab. It was, and you'd have to say, a thoroughly deserved win for Newcastle. It leaves Manchester United in the bottom half of the table. It's their worst start to a season for 30 years. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still hasn't won away from home since he was appointed permanent manager. What's gone wrong?
Well, I don't think it's just happened this weekend, Nathan. I think when you get a match like you did last weekend against Newcastle, it's not what happened on the day. You have to go back a long time, first of all, to see where the team is at now compared to where it should be at. You know, that was a poor team, and they played very, 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 very poorly. So that hasn't just happened overnight. You know, there were warning signs, I think, at the start of the season when Sanchez left and Lukaku left. They weren't replaced, and they're very, very weak up front, and indeed weak in midfield, Nathan. In my opinion, you know, they don't have they're pretty much weak all round. And I know that sounds strange, but for Manchester United to be in a position, like, I think McTominay, for example, is probably the best midfield player at the moment.
He's been seen as the one who's maybe stepped up and shown a little bit of character over the last few weeks.
He's not good enough to lead them. You know, he's good at what he does, but he wants another two top-class midfield players in to really do what he can do best, which is to help them out, rather than being what I consider him now to be the main man in midfield. And I think it's just gone from bad to worse. I think Solskjaer is in a very, very delicate position, and he hasn't been helped, I think, by at the higher end of the Manchester United directors. They've got three lads in who have been good players, James and Maguire, and that they're good signings. The right back is a good signing, but they're still very, very short, Nathan. So
the fact that Maguire and James have been two of the more impressive performers, and Wan-Bissaka at right back when he's been fit,
good lad, yeah.
Does that suggest actually that Solskjaer, if he was let do what he wanted to do in the transfer market, actually has enough about him to get Manchester United back to the level, if he was given the money to spend to replace Lukaku, that he would choose the right players? Well,
you'd have to go back to the situation that if and when Ferguson, go back to Ferguson, when he was undoubtedly in that position. I don't think Solskjaer has ever been in that position since he took over. So when it comes to the big decisions, he's not making them, Nathan, because I don't think the board trust him. You know, he certainly doesn't give the impression of being a really established manager, that this is what I'm going to do and this is what I want to do. You know, the three signings were good signings. Whether they were his signings or not remains, I would doubt.
So do you think with the case of somebody like Lukaku, who people did have question marks whether he was able to deliver at the very highest level for United, that maybe he was a bit of a flat-track bully against some of the lesser teams, that if Ferguson was in charge, Lukaku wouldn't have been allowed to leave unless he had a replacement ready? Yeah, well, I think it wouldn't even take a Ferguson to do that. You know, it's only common sense. Lukaku mightn't have been the best player in the world, but he was the best centre-forward they had. And they don't have a best centre-forward now because they've sold him on. In other words, you don't sell him on until you get somebody lined. Solskjaer's been doing the job, whatever it was, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months. It doesn't take that long to know who you want, right, when it comes to the close season. In fact, in the close season, I think he was away on his holidays, Nathan, most of the time. I think he should have been at Old Trafford, and the correct thing for the club would have been for Solskjaer to be at Old Trafford and the Woodward, is it Woodward? Ed Woodward,
Edward, yeah. To say, who do you want? Let's go and get them now. As soon as the season finished, that should have been the priority. That's what Ferguson did. Like, if you go back on Ferguson, he had the players in 2 or 3 weeks after the season finished. That's what he wanted. That's what he got. End of story. Solskjaer wasn't. I don't think he was in on these signs. I don't think they were even asking him, who do you want, who do you not want? I don't think he had any say in it.
Surely there's no way, though, Solskjaer, when they're having their end of season meetings, he isn't standing up from what he saw over the final months of last season saying, we need central midfielders. That even if Pogba stays, if Matic stays, and if McTominay is coming through, we're massively weak in the middle compared to other teams in the top 10, never mind the top 4.
Well, what I said before and what you're saying now is one as bad as the other. Say he was there.
And they're not listening.
And they're not listening. That's just as bad as him not being there. You know what I mean? Manager's a manager, and a manager dictates what they should do, dictate what's going on.
So what are his options in that position? If that did happen, what I'm saying?
Well, I think his best option would be to say, I finished. If you don't have the power to do what you need to do, and you want to do, and you're not allowed to do it, Nathan, it's only a matter of time before you're kicked out.
Do you think he took the job, though, on the understanding that actually he wouldn't have that power?
That's just as bad. In other words, you shouldn't take the job in that understanding.
Manchester United, if that's the only way you're going to get the job.
I can understand what you're saying. It's a big club, and everybody would love to have the job. But he's been in the game a long time, Nathan, and he'd have to be told or knew that you might be a manager, but you're not going to have these powers, right? You better, in my opinion, you're asking me what he should have said. In my opinion, he should have said, thank you, but no thank you. Because it's going to, look, if you see it on his face now after the match the other day, Nathan, and he can't say, hang on a minute, I haven't been in charge of this. Can't say that. Well, he can say it, but he's not going to last 2 minutes saying it. And then people would say, well, why did you stick it for that long? So he can't say anything, right? So the job should have been done early on. You know, like, this is what I need to be manager of Manchester United. It's a huge job, right? So, again, if you go back to, if it was Conte taken over, young Ferguson taken over, would they have accepted those conditions?
Well, everything we've seen of Ferguson would suggest not.
No, and Conte, you know, because they're men who say, no, they're leaders, they're general. I don't want to be too hard on Solskjaer. He seems a nice lad, and I don't think he was ever the man for the job, despite the fact they did have a good run of results, no doubt about that. But that's one element of taking over his position that he was in. But then you have to go from there. Now you have to have a real manager, in my opinion, to say, this is what I want. If I'm going to be head of this club, this is what I want. I don't think that's the case, right? And now he's stuck with it. As happens, any manager that takes the job under those conditions, Nathan, is not going to succeed. They fail, and then they get the boot. Now, I can understand Solskjaer. This is a big club, and this is where I was before. I'll work around that, and I'll work around that. I've seen it so many times. But the fact is, when it comes to certain situations whereas the incoming of players and the outgoing of players, right, you don't have the power in that particular area, it's almost inevitable that you're going to fail. Because say for granted, they say, well, we're bringing Joe Bloggs in, and so says, well, I want him and him and him. Right, he's no longer in charge, and he's no longer getting the players on the pitch that he thinks will do the job for him. Now, it's been a mess because he's got those 3 players on. There's another 4 or 5 players needed that he hasn't got anyway. Now, whether that was his fault or not, I don't know. But the fact is, it hasn't happened. So he's the one. The manager is always the one that's going to take the hit. Doesn't matter what he can say when he leaves. Well, I didn't have the power and I didn't have this and that. But he's. The manager will always take the hit. And I think at the moment, Nathan, I don't think he's that far away from the sack, to be quite honest. Right.
So they play Liverpool straight after the international break, which was the final nail in the coffin for Jose Mourinho a year ago, was a defeat against Liverpool. There seems to be an understanding almost among Manchester United supporters that maybe Solskjaer isn't to blame, that Ed Woodward is the one who wouldn't go out and sign those 4 or 5 players that they needed. And maybe because of his legendary status at the club, they're willing to give him that little bit more time. Do you see any way that Solskjaer can turn this around?
No, because they still need players. Is he going to get the players in that he wants? You see, we're well into the season now. All this should have happened in the summer. Now, if it didn't happen in the summer, it's not going to happen now, right? Because as soon as the season finished last week, he should have been sitting down with Woodward and saying to Woodward, these are the players I want, right? Can you get them for me? These are the players I want. I don't think that happened. I think Solskjaer went on his holidays, left it to Woodward, and Woodward did what he wanted to do. And again, I keep going back in management. Any manager that takes over, you don't get 2 managers alike. You don't get 2 managers agreeing on who's a good player and who's a bad player. So anytime a manager takes a job, it's his decisions. In his mind, all managers have a vision of what they want and how the team should play. And the only way to fulfill that vision, if that's the right word, is to get the players on the pitch that you want, right? It's no good. Somebody says to Solskjaer, I want Joe Bloggs in left-hand side midfield. Well, no, you can't have him, but you can have him. And he's saying, well, that's not the vision I have for the team. So he's gone. You know, like, you have to be true to the vision that you have of the players. Everybody, like, if you take Klopp and Guardiola, they're totally different managers. Both of them have different visions of what they want in the team.
But do they not make players that they have better?
Well, you can go so far on that. Of course you can make them better. But if the players are not that good in the first place, you're not going to make them better. Say an average player. You're not going to make him a brilliant player. You'll make him a better average player. If you've got a brilliant player, then you'll make him a lot better because he's playing with other players who go along with what you want the team to do. In other words, if you can say, that's my vision of the team. I want Joe Bloggs on the right-hand side, and you can see it. Managers see it. Now, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But the only chance you have is to see what you can do. Then you're judged. Say in Solskjaer's case, he wanted 3 midfield players, him, and him, and it doesn't work out. That's his fault, and he takes responsibility for it. But it's terrible for managers who want him, and they get him, and him, and they don't do well. Like, if you go back to Arsenal, Wenger, right, when he was near the end, they were going to get a director of football. And what he said, I don't mind taking responsibility for the players that I bring in, but I don't want to be taking responsibility for players that I haven't brought in. And I think Solskjaer is in that position. And I think he did sign on for that, Nathan. But once he signed on for that, then that's it. He has to stick with that. And to be quite honest, I've never seen it work in management.
I gotta say, being at the game, I was quite shocked at just how bad Manchester United were, particularly in that midfield area. And you do look at maybe the better teams in the Premier League, the likes of Wolves, who have a very good central midfield, the likes of Leicester. But this was the Newcastle side, who were second from bottom, who'd won once all season, who started the 2 Longstaff brothers, 121, the other making his first ever appearance for Newcastle. And they sort of bullied him in midfield. Like, are you shocked by how far United have fallen in the space of 5-6 years since Ferguson left?
No, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at it because I think on the conditions that Solskjaer had and the conditions in which he took the job, I think it was inevitable. You see, last Saturday's performance, was it Saturday or Sunday? Sunday.
Yeah.
Didn't just happen on Sunday, Nathan. This is a build-up over a good period of time that you do get to that particular situation because players in the dressing room, they know what's going on. They know this is not going where it should be going, right? So now you lose the morale, you know, and I think we spoke about it. You can't define morale. The morale in the football team, in my experience, was the manager knew what he wanted, he got the players in he wanted, the team was playing, they were given everything, and they believed in the manager. Then you have a morale in a good dressing room, right? I don't think, actually, I think Solskjaer made a comment after the match. He said, the way you lads are going, you're going to get me the sack. Which is true. Yeah. But what can he do? It hasn't suddenly come to that position. Manchester United haven't suddenly come to playing against Newcastle the way they played. That's been coming over a period of time, Nathan, where you get the lads in the dressing room or even among themselves, you know, we're not doing it. You know, the manager's not doing it. And then at the back of all this, Nathan, you've got the Pogba problem. You know, Pogba is still one of the main problems at Manchester United. And Solskjaer a few weeks ago said, I have never had any trouble with Pogba. He's a great lad, he does his training, he does this, he does that, and he's a terrific lad. Well, Pogba is the same lad a few weeks ago, was definitely looking to get to Real Madrid or one of the big teams. Do you know what I mean?
Or maybe Solskjaer's looking and thinking that's his agent and actually Pogba at training is okay.
Right, but if the agent, you can play in a certain amount, but there's no way the agent would make some of the comments that were attributed to Pogba without Pogba's permission. There's no doubt about that. No, the Pogba is in a position, and the thing is, even when he is playing Nathan Pogba, he's not the player he's supposed to be in relation to the team. He just isn't. And I think if let's put it this way: say Ferguson was in charge of that team at the end of the season, would Pogba still be there?
Well, if Ferguson saw value in him, he'd still be there. If he
but if he would play it
the way he played last season.
When he played for Manchester United, he wouldn't be there. In fact, Ferguson got rid of him 8 or 9 years ago when he was a young fella because he saw his attitude wasn't what he wanted at Manchester United. Now he's back. There's no way Ferguson would live with that, or any of the top managers live with the way Pogba. They say out because you're trying to build a team, and you tried to build a team with the right characters and everybody pulling together. That hasn't been the case. And I know what dressing rooms are like. When things are not right, it seeps in, it gets worse and worse and worse. And then eventually you get what you got at Newcastle. Didn't happen overnight. That's been coming for a long time now for Manchester United.